Niranjana, there's the chair in my room, somebody can use it. There's the chair in my room, someone can use it. I think there's probably people eligible for chairs.
For chairs? Sure.
Yeah.
So I request you to come a little bit forward, please.
Forward, all this blank space, we're paying for it.
I'm going to speak first, introduce Jayadvaita Maharaj.
This is the second row here, that row in front of you. That's the second row, just waiting to be filled in.
Hare Krishna. I'm not sure what he's going to speak about this evening. I asked him and he said, let's see. Which is keeps it exciting for all of us. Having fresh topics to discuss. But appropriate, I feel, that for Maharaj to speak first and to introduce whatever topic he wishes to speak about to all of you. I know it will be relevant and I know it will be beneficial. We decided this time, it was pretty spontaneous that to come and travel together for this next 2 weeks. He was with me in Hartford and in Boston, and even when I leave in the middle of next week for Florida, he'll be going also. And be staying at the home with our God Brother Guru Gauranga Prabhu. We're visiting him for a few days, and also conveniently Guru Gauranga Prabhu lives in the hub, surrounded by his mother, my uncle, and Jayadvaita Maharaj's uncle. Jayadvaita Maharaj's mother, excuse me, who are all very close by to Guru Gauranga. So we're going to have a special program there as well for them. I've known Jayadvaita Maharaj since, well, more closely I got to know him in the late 1970s. You took sannyas in 78, was it? Yeah, 1978. And that was also the year that I was requested to go to New York. At that time, we had a 11-story building in Manhattan, and there were approximately 220 devotees living in that building. And it was shortly after Srila Prabhupada departed that I was requested to go there. Not for any great mission, except somehow to take responsibility for training some of the newer people who are coming to our temple. In fact, Damodar Prabhu was my assistant. He didn't come tonight. Yes. Damodar Prabhu, who most of you know, was my assistant in New York in 1978. And Jayadvaita Maharaj was there at that time. And as I've described previously in Hartford, I thought I should repeat it also, that Maharaj was somebody who was always very kind and compassionate to me. It was a struggle being in the middle of Manhattan, such a passionate city, and with so many people to take responsibility for, that Maharaj was a very frequent source of solace for me, and he would personally reach out and come and visit me on the 6th floor. This huge building, and we would sit and talk sometimes many evenings together, and he would stay up late into the night. And Maharaj, being the renounced sannyasi then as he is still now, Maharaj doesn't require more than a tree to sleep under at night. He's very satisfied to take rest wherever Krishna provides, whatever facilities provides him. And even there in Manhattan,
I'll sleep anywhere.
and for very briefly too. Yeah, he would sit and be talking, and it was late into the night, and rather than going upstairs to bed, he would just, right where he was, he would just lie down on the floor, pull a chadar over his head, and go to sleep for the night. And then sometimes he would wake up in the middle of the night and leave, and probably to go chant. And that's when I first got to know Maharaj. Of course, he's become a very important figure in our movement, having been trained by Srila Prabhupada personally in editing. Many of Srila Prabhupada's books were edited by Jayadvaita Maharaj in those early days, and he continued to do that service in a very dedicated way after Prabhupada's departure. And Prabhupada had great trust in Maharaj's ability to edit his books. Now, he also has responsibilities in the BBT, and continuing in the same responsibility in publishing and printing Srila Prabhupada's books, but he spends a lot of his time in Africa, and I don't get to see him that often because I don't go to Africa and he doesn't come to East Europe. So therefore I took advantage of the opportunity of being in the same country at the same time to reach out and ask him if we could spend some time together, and he very kindly reciprocated and agreed to come here, and not only to give his association to myself but also to all of you. And I think it's appropriate that he speaks first this evening. And Maharaj, please.
How much I take from?
You can speak as long as you wish, Maharaj. As long as you wish. I do not in any way want to set any limits. I'm sure everybody will be eager to however long you speak. Do you know where you want to go in the Gita?
No.
Okay.
And this is hard because this is the one where you can't go.
There's a chapter, so you can pick one.
Amazon has to come out with a verse randomizer.
Huh? Yeah, the pages don't flip as quickly as they do in the book.
No.
I think Rohinana's looking for one.
That's okay. We've landed. Come on over. I actually came just to get Niranjana Maharaj's company. He's very kind. Gaura Govinda Maharaj used to say that his own mission was to preach to the preachers. So Niranjana Maharaj has also taken that up, preach to the preachers. So he's taking care of me also. I'm very grateful. This is Bhagavad Gita as it is, chapter 8. First thing, are there any guys who are here who don't want to be here? Little guys, little girls? Rather be playing with their friends?
No, I think they're
pretty well dispersed? Okay.
Yeah.
And then there's the other little
Phones?
friends.
Mobile phones?
You can check your phones and see that they're pacified in the Vietnam War sense of the term. Yam yam vapi smaran bhavam tyajachante kalevaram tam tame vaiti konteya sadatad bhava bhavataha. Whatever state of being one remembers when he quits his body, O son of Kunti, that state he will attain without fail. Tasmat sarveshu kaleshu ma manusmara yujyacha mayarpata mano buddhir mame vaishyasya samshayaha. Therefore, Arjuna, you should always think of me in the form of Krishna, and at the same time carry out your prescribed duty of fighting. With your activities dedicated to me and your mind and intelligence fixed on me, you will attain me without doubt. Purport. This instruction to Arjuna is very important for all men engaged in material activities. The Lord does not say that one should give up his prescribed duties or engagements. One can continue them, and at the same time think of Krishna by chanting Hare Krishna. This will free one from material contamination and engage the mind and intelligence in Krishna. By chanting Krishna's names, one will be transferred to the supreme planet, Krishna Loka, without a doubt. Om Jnanatimirandhasya Gyananjana Shalakaya Chakshur Militam Jena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha Shri Chaitanya Manobhishtam Sthapitam Jena Bhutale Swayam Rupakadamayam Tathati Swapadantikam Vandeham Shri Guru Shri Jatapadakamalam Shri Gurun Vaishnavasya Shri Rupam Shagvajatam Sahagana Bhagavatam Vitamscha Sajiva Sadvaitam Savadutam Pravishana Sahitam Krishna Chaitanya Devam Shri Radha Krishna Padam Sahagana Lalita Shri Vishakam Vitamscha He Krishna Karuna Sindhu Dinabandhu Jagapate Gopesha Gopika Kanta Radha Kanta Namostate Tapta Kamshana Gaurangi Radhe Vrindavaneshwari Vishamanu Sute Devi Anamami Haripriye Pancha Kalpa Tarubhyascha Kripa Sindhu Eja Patitana Bhavanebhyo Vaishnavyo Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Shri Vasadi Gaura Bhaktavinda Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare Mamanusmara Yujyacha. Two-pronged program to think of Krishna regularly, always, Mamanusmara, following in the footsteps of the great devotees, and Yujyacha, fight. Arjuna was a military man, so he was told, no meditation. Think of me, but fight. Think of me and fight. That's practical also. If Krishna had told Arjuna, my dear Arjuna, just think of me, yeah, all right, but what am I supposed to do? Sit, think. It's not practical. Especially Arjuna was a man with a bow and arrows and meant for fighting, and he's going to sit there and meditate all day. This is not real. So Krishna gave this instruction that you think of me and you fight. Both things. Not only because you have to be busy, Krishna gave that instruction also. Even if you don't fight for me, you're going to fight anyway. That's the kind of person you are. You're a fighter. So if you don't fight now under my instructions, you're going to fight later under the instructions of the material energy. Because you're a fighter. You know, ducks quack, birds fly, fish swim, fighters fight. You're going to fight. So, fight for me. Be Krishna conscious and fight. And it's not just an engagement thrown at him, but it's also practical in another sense, that Krishna has some mission that he wanted to accomplish. He had some purpose. And therefore Arjuna could serve the Lord's purpose by fighting. He could devote himself to practical activity in the service of the Lord. That's called bhakti. Prabhupada explains that bhakti is not just sentimental feeling, and it's not some kind of mental speculation. It's practical activity in the service of the Lord. So the Lord told Arjuna, this is what I want you to do. I want you to fight, and at the same time, think of me. Mam and Nusmara, you do. So everyone can do that. The Brahmin, the Kshatriya, the Vaishya, the Shudra, the Brahmachari, the Grahastha, the Vanaprastha, the Sannyasi. Everyone. The person in the country, the person in the city. Everyone can think of Krishna and perform his or her particular prescribed duty. And Prabhupada gives an example of how this is possible. The Acharyas give this example. Many of you have already heard many times. That there's some woman who's married and has a lover on the side. And naturally she doesn't want her husband to find out. So she's doing her housework at home more attentively. She's the ideal housewife. So that her husband won't suspect that there's something else going on. But inwardly, she's always thinking, when will I meet him? When will we get together again? What is he doing? Is he thinking of me? On and on. So that's called lover consciousness. So if lover consciousness, why not Krishna consciousness? As it's possible materially, it's possible spiritually. That we carry on outwardly. Chaitanya Mahaprabhu gave that instruction also to Raghunath Das Goswami. Raghunath Das Goswami was a married man, and he wanted to leave his home and run off and join Chaitanya Mahaprabhu at Puri. So Chaitanya Mahaprabhu said, don't jump up and down like a monkey sannyasi. Don't be that kind of renouncer. You stay at home, and outwardly you should appear like an ordinary businessman, and inwardly you be Krishna conscious. Later, of course, Raghunath did leave everything. That was at a later stage. But at that stage, that was Chaitanya Mahaprabhu's instruction. That outwardly you're like everyone else. But inwardly your purpose is different. Prabhupada said it's a change of consciousness only. Outwardly there were so many fighters at Kurukshetra. Arjuna was just another fighter. But inwardly he was instructed, Mam Anusmara, always think of me. And the result will be, Mame Vaishyasya Samshayaha. The Lord explained in the previous word, whatever you think of, that's where you go. Our consciousness determines our, even in ordinary affairs, you think of going to London and then you start working on it. You book your ticket and soon you're in London. It's your consciousness that eventually takes you there. So in the previous verse, Krishna, whatever you think of prayanakale, at the time of death, that determines the next destination. The example was Maharaj Bharat, who thought of a deer at the time of death, and came a tear. So whatever we think of. So Krishna said, think of me. And if you think of me, then asamshaya, you'll come to me without any doubt. We may have doubt, but Krishna has no doubt. He's in charge of the whole system. He's in charge of everything. And he says, if you think of me, you'll come to me. And therefore we should also not doubt. Asamshaya. Asamshaya, doubt, of course, doubt is a function of intelligence. A person who's just gullible is generally stupid, a little dull. A more intelligent person is critical. He's got doubts. He's got, why should I believe it's? But that doubt is meant to be satisfied by knowledge. It's meant to be satisfied by knowledge. A person who has doubts tries to understand what is the situation. And when he does get understanding, yes, now at the end, Arjuna said, Nashtamoha, my illusions are now dispelled. Tvat prasada maya, because by your mercy you've explained everything. So the fortunate person approaches a bona fide spiritual master, chants Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. And by chanting, by hearing from the right source, his consciousness becomes purified, he becomes enlightened with spiritual knowledge, and his doubts are destroyed. Krishna also says, when your doubts are destroyed, by the knowledge, by transcendental knowledge, then that knowledge illuminates everything, as the sun illuminates everything in the daytime. So this process of Krishna consciousness is very nice. We only have to think of Krishna, and of course thinking of Krishna means there's a program. It's not just haphazard that, yes, I'll think of Krishna. There are things to do that will invoke our Krishna consciousness. Not difficult. Not difficult. To hear about Krishna, to chant Hare Krishna, to associate with devotees of Krishna. In this way, to be always engaged in Krishna activities that will help us so that at the end our success will be sure. The program is there, and if we take it seriously, then asamshaya, no doubt. Enough. Thank you. Hare Krishna.
It made me think of something. And since I have this right here, maybe I'll just read it. And we can speak from it. And you were speaking about, Prabhupada was speaking about in the commentary actually also, and the verse about how to, the importance of performing one's duty and at the same time think of me, as Krishna says. And Prabhupada said in the commentary that the Lord does not say that one should give up his prescribed duties or engagements. One can continue them at the same time think of Krishna by chanting Hare Krishna. This will free one from material contamination and engage the mind and intelligence in Krishna. By chanting Krishna's names, one will be transferred to the Supreme Planet Krishna Loka without a doubt. And Srila Bhaktivinoda Thakur in Vaishnava Siddhanta Mala, he addresses this point that what does it mean to follow Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu's order to incessantly chant Hare Krishna. Because sometimes, and people ask this question a lot, well, I'm supposed to always think of Krishna, I'm supposed to Kirtaniya Siddhahari, I'm also supposed to chant Hare Krishna all the time, but I have so many other things that I have to do in the form of duties, which forces me to speak about and think about other things which seem to have no connection with Krishna. And how do I bridge those two experiences? How do I balance my life in such a way so that it's wholesome, complete, and not that well, there's some time for my duties and there's some time to think of Krishna, and even when I'm thinking of Krishna, I'm so overwhelmed about my inadequacy in performing my duties that my mind is too much disturbed even to think about Krishna when I'm supposed to be chanting Hare Krishna, because my duties always seem to be unfulfilled. And as much as I try to make them complete and wholesome and perfect, they're never really completely fulfilled. And the result is that even when I sit down and chant Hare Krishna, that's also incomplete, because I can't even think of Krishna. I'm thinking about all these other things that are pressing me. And it seems like an insurmountable achievement to just simply take this quote that Srila Prabhupada has given. Okay, just do your duties and chant Hare Krishna and think of Krishna. And without a doubt, asangsaya, it'll all happen. You'll be Krishna conscious, and as Prabhupada says, you'll be transferred to the Supreme Planet Krishna Loka without a doubt. How to, and sometimes people even say that, how do you speak to somebody at work and think of Krishna? You know, I've got that question many times. You know, like, shh. I mean, you've got to sort of like partition your hard disk, and you got to run two programs simultaneously. Because to put them together, it's like, forget it. It's like, and so Srila Bhaktivinoda Thakur explains, it's just a short section here, what does it mean to incessantly chant Hare Krishna, even for those who have their duties to perform? How do they incessantly chant Hare Krishna when, you know, a significant portion of their time in each day and their life is dedicated to other activities which apparently have no real connection to my spiritual life? Of course, the acharyas explain it can be connected if we understand what is the purpose of maintaining the body. And that's specifically the point that Srila Bhaktivinoda Thakur addresses here, that I wanted to read, and thought we could try to analyze it and understand it in a balanced way. Mahaprabhu's order is simply this: that everyone should incessantly chant Harinam. Incessantly chant Harinam. The meaning of this command is not that people should always chant the holy name while completely desisting from all bodily activities, household duties, and dealings with others. By ceasing all actions of bodily maintenance, the body will be destroyed in a short while. In the context of this command, then, how should one engage in Harinam? Since the Lord gave humanity the command to incessantly take the holy name, then the true meaning is that everyone, whether householder, sannyasi, vanaprastha, or brahmachari, brahmin, kshatriya, vaishya, or sudra, lok-born or mlecha, and so forth, all people should remain in their respective situations and chant Harinam. Verily, this is the only meaning. It is necessary to nicely remain in one's own natural situation, because that position facilitates the proper performance of one's activities of bodily maintenance, and thus the body will not expire untimely. Bodily maintenance requires dealing with others. It is essential that all such actions be observed in a pure and undisturbed fashion. Then all of these things will be conducted very nicely. And then he goes on to explain about other related topics, but we're going to try to stick with this topic about how to incessantly chant Harinam. And essentially, what Bhaktivinoda Thakur is saying here is that maintenance of the body for those who are according to their prescribed duties is not outside the realm of chanting Hare Krishna, as long as one remains focused while they're maintaining the body. If one is not focused on the reason for maintaining the body, because the body has a purpose, and that purpose is supposed to be fulfilled, especially in the human form of life. Kamasya nendriya patir labo jiveta yavata jivasya tattva jigyasa natayasya karmabi. That life's desires shouldn't be directed towards sense gratification. One should desire to live because the human form of life enables him to inquire into the absolute truth, and this should be the goal of all of one's work. There's a goal for work. The goal for work is to maintain the body, one's own body, the body of others, according to their prescribed duties, because the body is a valuable instrument which is meant to be used for cultivating Krishna consciousness, especially by chanting Hare Krishna. And as Bhaktivinoda Thakur says, if we don't perform our duties in relationship to the body, in relationship to others, in relationship to our household duties, if we just simply stop them, then the body will expire untimely and we will not have fulfilled the purpose of having the body. It will be a wasted body, because the actual purpose for maintaining it in the first place will have not been completed or fulfilled. It remains unfulfilled. So therefore, also not only fixing the mind on Krishna, which will come, of course this verse explains Tasmat Saveshu Kalishu Mama Nusmari Yujicha Mayapata Manobadya Mami Shankshaya Evaisha Shankshaya. Yes. That you should perform your duty and at the same time think of me. And what Srila Bhaktivinoda Thakur is explaining is that, yes, thinking of Krishna, it will come, and ability to constantly chant Hare Krishna will come, and Kirtaniya Sada Hari, of incessantly chanting the holy name of the Lord, will come automatically to those who utilize the body and maintain the body and perform the duties in relationship to the body for the purpose of always chanting Hare Krishna, always hearing about Krishna, always telling others about him. In fact, when, who was it? Kurma the Brahmin approached Lord Chaitanya, not only Raghunath Das, but Kurma the Brahmin, when he approached Lord Chaitanya and he asked him to please allow me. He wanted to renounce these things. He wanted to renounce his duties to his family. He wanted to just give them up and travel with Lord Chaitanya. Lord Chaitanya said, no. He said, actually, if you simply tell everyone you meet about Krishna, then all obstacles to household life will be automatically overcome. And the well-known verse that Srila Prabhupada oftentimes would quote, Yari Dekatarika Krishna Upadesha Mara Yai Gurahanatani Yadesh, that he quoted that verse that tell everyone you meet about Krishna, Krishna Upadesh. And this was the verse was spoken by Lord Chaitanya to Kurma the Brahmin, that don't renounce these things, stay within your family, and there'll be no obstacles to your family life whatsoever if you utilize whatever time you have for chanting Hare Krishna. Then the whole purpose of maintaining the body is fulfilled. And if you remember that, then not only is the purpose for maintaining your body fulfilled, but it actually becomes what's called Gaunar Dhamma. Gaunar Dhamma means, it's a support. It's a support to our service. I have a service. I have a tongue. I have ears. I have to utilize, instead of utilizing the tongue simply for speaking about mundane subject matters, I utilize the tongue for whenever possible to speak about transcendental subject matters which elevate the consciousness to the transcendental platform. Chaitanya Charitamrita, Prabhupada would oftentimes quote that verse, Nityasiddha Krishna Prema Sadhya Kabunoi Shravanadi Suchititi Korya Udoi. That pure love for Krishna is awakened within the heart of that person when they hear about Krishna. It's eternally situated with the heart when they hear about Krishna from others who speak about Krishna with affection, attachment. Then the result is that one's consciousness becomes elevated, and one can remember that as Narada Muni told Yudhishthira Maharaj also in the 7th canto of the Bhagavatam, when Yudhishthira Maharaj said to Narada Muni, you're a brahmachari, you're not entangled in household life. He said, I'm griha mudhadi. He said, I'm ignorant about the goal of life. I'm entangled. You're not entangled. Can you please instruct me? What is my primary duty so that I can follow the scriptures in such a way that I can achieve liberation from all of this? And Narada Muni's first instruction that he gave to Yudhishthira Maharaj, although of course Yudhishthira Maharaj out of his humility was presenting himself as Griha Mudhadi, an attached householder who was ignorant of the goal of life. But for our benefit, he was explaining that Narada Muni began explaining, they said that the very first instruction is that one has to associate with saintly persons, hear from them about Krishna, and inquire for them as to how to, it says that also one should accept whatever is necessary for maintaining body and soul together and earn an honest means of livelihood. This is it. Earn an honest means of livelihood and learn how to offer the fruits of your work to Krishna. They said the way that you learn how to offer the fruits of your work to Krishna is you have to associate with saintly persons and you hear from them and inquire for them how to utilize one's life for service to Krishna. And then the next verse is a very, very nice verse that's 7th canto. I'll go there. I have it right in front of me, so why not read it? Shrindvan Bhagavatam Krishnam. I can't remember this. 7th canto. thought I had it right in front of me. Yes, here it is. 7, chapter 14. Next verse. Shridvan Bhagavato Bhikshnam Avatara Katamritam Shradadhano Yata Kalam Upashanta Janavrita. He says the Grihastha must associate again and again with saintly persons, and with great respect he must hear the nectar of the activities of the Supreme Lord in his incarnations, as these activities are described in Srimad Bhagavatam and other Puranas. Thus one should gradually become detached from affection for his wife and children, exactly like a man awakening from a dream. Now it's interesting, when I read this verse, that the word is used here gradually. In other words, just as a person awakens from a dream and gradually comes to clear consciousness, in the same way, by hearing the message of Srimad Bhagavatam, by chanting the holy name of the Lord in the association of devotees of the Lord, then gradually one's consciousness becomes awakened to one's natural state of existence, his natural spiritual state of existence, and the result is that detachment automatically manifests within the heart. Vasudevi Bhagavati Bhakti Yoga Prayojita Janaya Yasu Vairagyam Gnanam Chidamahaitukam. By rendering devotional service to the Supreme Personality of Godhead, one automatically acquires knowledge and detachment from this world. Or as Prabhupada would oftentimes quote the verse, Shushusho Shandadanasya Vasudeva Kata Ruchi Shanmayat Sevaya Viprapunya Tirtana Shevana. That by serving devotees who are freed from vice, great service is done. By that service, one develops an attachment, affection for hearing about Krishna. What is that service? Hearing. That is the service. Devotional service begins with Shravanam Kirtanam, hearing about Krishna. And sometimes people think that, they think that, the service means, what? In fact, I was just having a discussion with one devotee in the car in Kiev on the way to the airport. One devotee was asking about the statement that was made by Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur. And Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati had said that the result of service is that one desires more service. And he was trying to figure this out, he was really bewildered, his first thing was like, what does this mean? He asked, because the concept usually is that, well, if you're serving, and then you're already struggling enough, especially for those who are householders, to do some service, and as he was a householder, and he was quite busy in many activities at the temple, and it's already a struggle for him to do the service he was already doing, and he was thinking that if the result of the real test of that I'm serving properly is that I desire more service, then I'm failing terribly. And I tried to explain to him that actually that what Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur is explaining, that service is not simply what we do externally with the body, but actually service which is pleasing to Krishna. In fact, at many places in Bhagavad Gita, he states that that which is most pleasing to him is Manmana Bhava Mad Bhakta Madhyachi Mad Maskuru. That's most pleasing to him, that you think of me, you worship me, you offer your prayers to me. This is service. He's very pleased for the devotee who is always thinking him. In fact, he's so pleased that that's what actually binds him to the devotee, because he feels so much affection for that devotee who remembers him under all circumstances and all difficulties and all statuses of life, that Krishna feels that, how can I neglect such a person? He's only thinking of me. He's not making all these external fruitive adjustments, like a person, as we spoke about the other night, who awakens from a bad dream with a bad hallucination. He said, what Narada Muni was said, was that one who engages in another fruitive activity to counteract the results of the first fruitive activity is like a person who awakens from a bad dream into a bad hallucination. Doesn't counteract the effects of the bad dream. So in the same way, he's explaining that, think of me. When you think of me with your mind fixed on me, your intelligence dedicated to me, then you'll come to me. And then Krishna says, explains why you'll come to me. Because I'll deliver you I'll become the swift deliverer from the repetition of birth and death. You're always thinking of me. How can I neglect you? How can I let you go? How can I let you fall away? So Krishna's very responsive to the devotee who serves him by remembrance and by hearing about him. Very responsive. That's service. So usually we begin to calculate that more service means, well, more things that I do with my body, I got to be running around, I have to be doing this, I have to be doing that. But if we forget what we're doing and the purpose of why we're doing it, then we'll see that our enthusiasm goes down, our consciousness goes down, and we think, more service? Are you kidding me? But actually, and in fact, sometimes even we may not realize it sometimes, but the body's going to get old at some point and become debilitated. And what's going to happen when we have a body that can't even physically do even wash a pot? Is our devotional life finished? We spent our whole life running around with our bodies, thinking that's the only way to serve Krishna. And then when the body can't do anything, does it mean that it's all over? My spiritual life is finished? No. While we have a body that's healthy, we can do something with it. Yes, we can utilize it for Krishna's service, but the whole purpose of engaging in service is to fix the mind on Krishna. And the best way to fix the mind on Krishna is by hearing about him. It's the most potent method. It's the most potent method is by hearing and by chanting Shravanam Kirtanam. The mind will automatically be drawn and attracted to Krishna. This is seva. This is service. And this is a service that Krishna is very pleased with. So if we don't get it, if we don't catch it, if we don't understand what Krishna is trying to tell us in the Bhagavad Gita, and what great saints are trying to tell us in the pages of Srimad Bhagavatam, that the whole objective in all of this is somehow to bring the mind smartavyam satatam vishnu vismartavyo najatuchit sarva vidi nisidasyo etiyo eva kinkara. That Krishna must always be remembered. Krishna must never be forgotten. All the rules and the prohibitions given in the scriptures are meant to serve these principles. This is the objective. This is service. So when we understand what is the goal of this human form of life, how can I be serving Krishna in such a way that's pleasing to him, it's attractive to him, then we understand that Krishna is pleased when we use this human form of life for increasing our consciousness and remembrance of him and speaking about him and hearing about him. And then all other obstacles, all our subsidiary duties will automatically be filled. Shraddha Shabde Vishwas Kahi Sujita Nishchaya Krishna Bhakta Kama Krishna Kaile Sava Kama Kritahaya. Shraddha means firm, confident faith that simply by chanting Hare Krishna and serving Krishna, that automatically all my other subsidiary duties can be fulfilled. But if I fulfill all those other duties and neglect remembering Krishna, then Bhagavatam says, Shrama evihi kevalam. We've wasted our time. Damas fanushtata pungsam vishvaksenu katasha yet nopari yad vatim Shrama evihi kevalam. That the occupational activity a person performs according to his position is considered to be so much useless activity if it doesn't provoke an attraction for Krishna consciousness, hearing and chanting about Krishna. So Bhaktivinoda Thakur is explaining here that Kirtaniya Sada Hari, incessantly chanting Hare Krishna, means that we understand what the goal of maintaining this body is. And therefore, even though we may have to work as a matter of duty, even though we may have to speak to somebody, we may have to negotiate a contract, we may have to speak to the boss, we may have to speak to the employees, we may have to say something that has nothing to do with Krishna at all, apparently. But it becomes complete and wholesome when we understand what the reason why I'm doing this is not for sense gratification. The reason why I'm doing this is so that I can use this body and maintain the body of my family members so that we can utilize all other time that we have for Krishna consciousness. Then it all comes together. It just all comes together. It becomes complete. It's wholesome. Yeah, that's it. And I won't think of giving up my duty because now I have a reason for doing it. If I just think it's for sense gratification, if I just think it's to get a paycheck, if I just think to earn money, to live comfortably and be happy for the rest of my life, now I failed. I failed. But there's more. There's more. And we should remember that while executing our duties, that there's more. And how to remember it? By utilizing whatever time that we have when we're not performed in the other duties of maintenance and everything else for increasing our Krishna consciousness. Then it all comes together and life is balanced. It's complete. And the result is, as Narada Muni tells Yudhishthira Maharaj, the result is that gradually one begins to become awakened from a dream. He says right here, he says, Shrinvan Bhagavato Bhikshnam Avatara Kataritam Shradhano Yata Kalam Upashanta Janavita. Grahastha must associate again and again with saintly persons with great respect, hear the nectar of the activities of the Lord and the incarnations, as described in Srimad Bhagavatam and other Puranas. Thus one should gradually become detached from affection and for his wife and children, exactly like a man awakening from a dream. Gradually detachment is automatically awakened in the most wholesome way possible by becoming attached to Krishna. If we try to become detached by any other way, very difficult. But by becoming attached to Krishna, it becomes very natural. So, this is, of course, as I explained, this is an explanation that was given by Srila Bhaktivinoda Thakur as to what does it mean to always chant Hare Krishna at the same time continue with our duties. Arjuna had to continue his duties of fighting. That was his duty. Others have to continue their duties also, whatever their duties may be, according to their position, whether brahmachari, grihastha, vanaprastha, sannyas, or whether brahman, kshatriya, vaishya, shudra, whatever duties they may have to perform. They're meant to perform their own duties and at the same time chant Hare Krishna and hear about Krishna and speak about Krishna. And then, and in this way, this is the real meaning of Kirtaniya Siddhahari. Why? Because one's life will become complete gradually as one becomes detached. Then the time and attention and energy which goes into the maintenance of the body will diminish, and one will actually find that it's been wholesomely replaced with another attachment that has been awakened within the heart as a result of a life dedicated for hearing and chanting about Krishna. It will be automatically replaced with something better. But if we don't take advantage of the association, don't take advantage of the words of the great saintly persons, the sages, as spoken by Narada Muni, by Srila Bhaktivinoda Thakur, by Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur, by Srila Prabhupada, and all of our predecessor acharyas, if we don't regularly hear, then the goal of life will be lost. And as much as we try to simply perform our daily duties and remember Krishna, it will be very difficult and troublesome task. And although we may pray for special dispensation, compensation, whatever it may be, so that please remember that my efforts, Krishna, that I've made to remember you, it may come, it may not come, but nonetheless, still we have to utilize our time wisely. What is it? Ayo harati vai pungsam ujan. Can someone help me? Ayo harati vai pungsam ujan astam. I can't remember. Both by rising and setting, the sun decreases the duration of life for everyone, except for one who utilizes the time for discussing the pastimes of the Holy Personality of Godhead. Right? Prabhupada would oftentimes quote that verse to explain that every day that passes, every time the sun rises and sets, it's another day closer to death. But for the devotee, these are transcendental, deathless narrations that bring us closer to our awakening in Krishna consciousness. So, few words in addition to the topic of Tasmat Saveshu Kaleshu Mamanusmara Yojicha, how to think of Krishna and carry out our prescribed duties at the same time. Anybody like to ask any questions? If I said, I'm not sure what the schedule is. Oh, I know what the schedule is. I've gone over it. Any questions for Maharaj?
It's about that story of Kurma Brahmana. I don't know.
Kurma the Brahmin?
Yeah, like you mentioned that he wanted to join Lord Chaitanya and travel with him. Just my question, so he wanted more to do it because his family life was troublesome, or just because he was so much attracted to Lord Chaitanya?
Didn't say.
Oh.
Whatever it was, Lord Chaitanya didn't accept it. Whatever the reason. Whether it was because it's troublesome, but Lord Chaitanya actually said no, there'll be no obstacles. He specifically said there'll be no obstacles in your household life if you simply just tell everyone about Krishna. So why should you give it up? Something else? Nimaitita.
So, when we're working, and I mean, I understand your point about we're using the body, maintaining the body so that we can engage in service. And there's times throughout the day when we're working where we have gaps. We have moments when we can actually chant, whether it's on our beads or in our mind. I have a few minutes here or there. Myself in between a patient or something, then I can chant a little bit, or even when working I can. So my question is, sometimes that chanting isn't necessarily like we might be chanting or attempting to chant in the morning when we're doing sadhana, more focused. So is there, how can we think, because that chanting may be more distracted or not as focused. So is that, how would you, is it okay to chant?
Is it beneficial?
Yeah, because it's also, in one sense, if it's not, if it's some distraction or you're not really being as focused, then the idea could be that you're chanting with offense, which I'm answering my own question. Of course, it's beneficial because chanting with offense is even
Namaparada yuktamam namameva haranchikam avishanti prayuktani tani vata kritanicha. The chanting of the Hare Krishna Maha Mantra is so purifying that even if one has committed offenses, if he simply goes on chanting, gradually he'll become free from offenses.
Yes.
Yes. Yeah. Better to chant Hare Krishna even if it's not fully focused and, turn on a computer and play a computer game in between patients. Certainly better. It's not focused, even if it's not focused. In other words, how to use one's time wisely, right? How to use one. The mind might not follow suit, may not be so quick to immediately adjust to, but the effort, Krishna's pleased. The effort, just the effort is Krishna's pleased by the effort, and therefore, if we somehow can invoke Krishna's mercy by the effort, because there's no other way anyways to remember. He has to agree to enter our mind anyways, even if we try to think of him. So, the effort, if the effort is there, he's pleased by the effort. So, whatever efforts we make.
There was a question over here.
I just, I'm curious about the word thinking. Because thinking is a translation here, and just, in my own experience of, that you, at a certain point, stop thinking. And you're just sort of, your whole being is vibrating with that sound. You know what I mean? So, how does that fit into what you're talking about when you say thinking? Thinking to me means that you're actively putting your mind into an engagement, when actually most of the time I feel like I'm not actually doing that. I'm in more of an experiential.
Well, thinking in the sense that we're speaking about here is that, Marge, why don't you answer the question?
Anusma. I was just thinking. Smara means remembering. Remembering is not necessarily an intellectual activity, but we remember our wife or husband or our children, or we remember something of value to us. It's not just an intellectual, analytical function, but it may even take over our whole being. Somebody remembers their grandmother and is overwhelmed by emotion or something. It's not just dry thought. So thinking, even Prabhupada said chanting is thinking. Chanting is thinking. Not that you have to, like sometimes devotees say, I have to think of Krishna, so it's like, okay, I got to get the picture in my mind, or I have to have some pastime, geared up and press the start button. No, if you're chanting, that's thinking. Because Krishna is on your mind. The Krishna name is on your mind. So thinking in this context is something broader than just analytical thought. Is that okay?
It's beautiful. Thank you.
Another question.
Sorry, again. It's not actually a question, just I noticed about Kirtan that I think everyone has experience of Kirtan, and it's like the process when Kirtan is loud and all sing together, it's like process of thinking actually stops. It just, when you were talking like this.
That's also thinking.
Oh, really?
Yeah, Kirtan is also thinking. We think of thinking as analytical thought, as contemplation or something like that. But if you're, in the broader sense, it's where your mind is. If you say, I was thinking of my boyfriend, it doesn't mean that you were thinking in terms of some sort of analytical calculation. It just means the guy was on my mind. Or the girl was on my mind. So when there's kirtan, then Krishna's on your mind. Krishna's on your mind, Krishna's on your tongue, Krishna's, as you say, your whole being vibrates with Krishna's presence. So that's also thinking, or super thinking.
Thank you.
Hare Krishna. Time for a shameless advertisement. Okay. There's a book I've written, it's coming out in September, called Vanity Karma. It's a commentary from the point of Bhagavad Gita on the biblical book of Ecclesiastes. It should come out in September, and if you'd like to be on the mailing list and be notified of when it comes out and so on, you can sign up at vanitykarma.com. I'll have it on my phone, so if you want to plug it in here, you can. Or we have the old style sign-up sheets too. And anything else you want to know about it, you can ask me. And there's one copy to look at, which is a quick print copy. It's not the real thing, but it's here.
That's
Okay.
a great introduction. Yeah, Maharaj was allowing me to read the book. So far, I've only had enough time to read the introduction and a little bit of the book, but the introduction was definitely tantalizing.
Maharaj, can you just say a little bit about Ecclesiastes? I don't sort of...
Ecclesiastes is a book of the Old Testament, and it's, in contrast to many other biblical books, highly philosophical. The opening shot by the speaker is vanity of vanities, all is vanity. Vanity in this context doesn't mean pride or conceit. It means uselessness, like, as in my efforts were in vain. So vanity is uselessness, meaninglessness, pointlessness, emptiness, something profitless, and so on. Even absurd is one translation. You do something for no purpose. Absurd. So he takes the role of a king and says, I became wealthy and built up a big estate and had mansions and had gold and had silver and had animals and orchards and women. And then I looked at everything that my hands had done, and I said that it was all in vain. It was all vanity. Because what's the use? What will it serve me? Then I thought, well, I'll become wise. So I cultivated wisdom, and I became wiser than all who'd preceded me. And I saw that that was useless, because the wise man and the fool both go to the same grave. So why have I become so very wise? The more wisdom, the more anxiety, the more frustration. So he tries karma, he tries gyan, and they both fail. So he's really looking for meaning and purpose in life, and seeing that the world is so screwy. It's so arbitrary and erratic, and apparently devoid of purpose, that it's difficult to make sense of. Then he flip-flops and says, well, God's given us a little enjoyment, at least we should enjoy what he's given us. That's like the same project that he already has declared to be useless. Well, let's go back and chew it again. Maybe there's a little juice still. But then he said, no. And he goes back to everything. So he's a man of divided mind also, or as one scholar said, a confused wise man. Confused wise man. There are many other topics in Ecclesiastes. It's quite a profound book.
Is a fictitious person? Good.
Well, there's a divided opinion among scholars. According to traditional scholars, the speaker is King Solomon because he introduces himself as the son of David, king in Jerusalem. That would be Solomon. So he's the traditional author, but modern scholars generally doubt his authorship on several grounds, one of them being that the Hebrew of Ecclesiastes is not the kind of Hebrew that would have been there in Solomon's time. So it's generally regarded among scholars today as a kind of literary fiction, that he picks up the role of Solomon. In fact, after the first couple of chapters, he never even makes reference to being a king again. So, but if it's a literary fiction, I could say that at least in my case, it was a highly effective literary fiction. Because when you read it with a kind of openness to, well, here he is and here's what he did, you go, wow, yeah. And how could I expect to get more wealth than Solomon or more wisdom than Solomon? That's what I'm trying to do. I'm trying to get as much wealth, as much wisdom, as much enjoyment. Here's the person who reached the top. He was like up there with Bill Gates and George Soros and all those people. If I finally make it, that's where I'm going to be. I'm going to be saying, well, I've got so much wealth that it's meaningless. I've got so much wisdom that I'm wiser than it would be wise to be. So it's powerful in the form in which it's given, whether we take it as literally Solomon or as a fictitious mask.
Thank you.
But the theme is the same, but it's sort of like Puranjana and Bhagavatam. Is that what you're saying?
There's similarities to the Puranjana narrative. It's kind of different in spirit and
Yeah.
and
But that's just that there's a fictitious person.
Yeah.
That's
well, the Puranjana story is really an allegory,
yeah.
and the last chapter of Ecclesiastes also has a kind of an allegorical section. It's sometimes called an allegory and sometimes not, but it's a series of images which are very powerful and which represent old age and death. So there's certainly a connection there with Puranjana and his the Puranjana story, strictly speaking, an allegory, or conforms to it is an allegory. In the Ecclesiastes, that last chapter is not exactly an allegory, but it's a string of images, very powerful also. One reason I commented on Ecclesiastes is because it does a lot of the work for me. If we want to present our philosophy, some of it we can just sit back and let the speaker of Ecclesiastes come out with it. He does a lot of it. So in some portions of the book, I just don't say anything. I just let him make the case for us. And then in other portions, we do have a lot to add. It's also the source, by the way, of the passage about time and seasons to everything. There's
Yeah, that's
seasons
right.
very well known.
To everything there is.
Mm-hmm.
That's Ecclesiastes. It's also the source of the fly in the ointment. That comes from Ecclesiastes too.
I think we're supposed to.
January 1st.
Well, we're supposed to end by 8, but let's have a short kirtan, and then I guess the prasadam is supposed to be served. That's okay. Krishna, Krishna, Hare Hare
Prabhupada ki jai. His Holiness Jayadvaita Sw Maharaj ki jai.